Okay, we're live, Ken. Kenneth Potty, author. Here we go. I wanted to get on here this morning and just do a little preview. I didn't have time to write anything this morning, but I have a very special guest. Look, you've got everything you need for your bedside table right here.
Yeah. It'll take you a while.
It'll take you a while for sure. Starting right at the top, Now, are you still calling all the books the Codename series?
Correct.
They are.
Yeah. So codenameseries.com is the website you can go to, and it's also an ad in Soundwaves magazine for the books, and you can click on there and get to the website from there.
Yeah, and I'm so glad we're starting live here on Instagram. We're gonna be going live on air in just a moment. We're just finishing up. Actually, I'm playing some brand new Quinn Sullivan right now. But Ken's here not only to talk about his books and script now, which I'm very excited about. I'm so proud of you. But also, with this auspicious day, D-Day, it's the 80th anniversary.
And Codename Sonny is about my dad being behind enemy lines in France, preparing the U.S. to land on D-Day. So, giving radios to the partisans for Patton's fake invasion of Pas-de-Calais at that time.
Yeah. So it's all very timely. And if you have a vet in your family or someone, you don't even have to be a vet. I'm not a vet, and I enjoyed them. I mean, they really are a great read. As an author, well, I guess I'm an author. I mean, I've never done a book, but I've written a lot of stories and stuff. The thought of putting all this together in such a cohesive manner is amazing.
And someone here is in this third book, too.
Oh, I'll have to flip through that. Well, we all know, don't we? But also, I want to show I don't think you've been here since Black Dawn's been out.
No, Black Dawn is new, and I'm coming out with the 5th book this summer.
Wow. I just cannot believe how you're able to get this out. And again, if you're thinking about, with your summer reading, we're going to be talking all about this. So we're going to be talking all about this. We're about to go back on air. You can get us at WCNI 90.9 FM. You can also get us streaming globally and proudly on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and from our very own website, WCNIRadio.org. But I'll leave this running. I think I can leave this running while we talk.
Sure.
So why don't I go ahead and do that as well? And so Ken is not going to play. You didn't bring a guitar or anything, did you, Ken?
No. I gave that up at 8 years old.
Well, you know what? You definitely found another talent. Let's get back on air because I can hear Quinn stopping now, and I'm going to give you that microphone. There we go. All right. Well, I told you we were working with some new equipment today, and it's wonderful. I love these new CD players, but I'm learning that I've not figured out how to do a single song on them yet, so it keeps going. So that's okay. We got 2 new ones from Quinn Sullivan. Salvation is the new album. We did Salvation, and we did Rise Up Children. So thank you so much, Quinn, for going in. I want to welcome to the program now that we're back on air. We're actually live on Instagram right now as well. So if you want to check out the pictures, I've got author Ken Potty with me, and he's brought his book series. I'm just, again, as I was just saying on Instagram, I'm absolutely in awe. I mean, I can't even, the feeling I get when I press, send on an article, it's like whoosh, Yeah. This has been, how many years of your life now has it been since you started? When you picked
Just a brief historical note on that.
Yeah.
We went with my dad and my wife, Kim, and I went with my parents on New Year's Eve, 99-2000. And at that time, my dad told us a story that he was behind enemy lines in France during World War II. And while he was there, a little Jewish girl died in his arms. He never told anyone, including my mother, until 3 days before New Year's Eve, 99-2000. And I asked him, why didn't you ever tell anybody?
Yeah.
So he said, if I'm still here, they're still here. And they're still arresting SS guards. And
still to this
Nazis.
day, yeah.
And it's still to this day. And so I wrote the book Past Present. So the past is the true story, and every other chapter is the present.
Yeah.
In quotes they found us. So it's kind of a factional book. Fact and fiction work together.
Yeah.
And my dad got to read the first 2 books before he passed away, and he obviously loved them. And at one point he said, you need to put the first 2 together, but I had an editor who was grew up in France, southern France, Margaret Ann Clemente, who unfortunately passed away of brain cancer in 2022.
I remember how close you were.
And the 4th book here, Black Dawn, was the last book that she had edited, and she said, you can't put the 2 together because it's really a the first one is a very contained story, and the
Yeah.
second one is, she goes, it's more Star Wars, so it's
Yeah,
more
breaks it.
universal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I
absolutely.
expand the characters, and some radio host is in book 3.
Yeah.
And that even expands it even farther,
Yeah.
and then I just continue on. So, yeah, I hadn't done Black Dawn. I did Codename Sunny, Mountains of Fire, and 13th Cohort. I think it was like 2015 or 2016 last time I was here.
Yeah, it's been a while. Has it been that long?
Yeah, because it took me from 2015-ish for 13th Cohort to 2018 to put out Black Dawn.
Yeah.
Because they're all 2 timelines, past and present,
Yeah.
World War II and the present. But I went one step farther with the next book, which is called Sugar Baby, which is my wife Kim Matus's dad, my father-in-law John Matus, was
Yeah.
a radio man on a B-24, and they flew 30 missions over France and Germany, and the whole crew survived. Now, if you've ever watched the show Masters of the Air
Yeah.
with the B-17,
Yeah.
you know how many casualties they took.
Yeah, that's unheard of.
75% casualty rate for the 8th Air Force is compared more than the Marines in the Pacific.
Yeah.
So they lost a lot of crews. I think one mission, and on the 100th they sent out 30 planes, and they lost 17 in one mission. So for his crew to survive the entire war is just amazing. And the whole book's about Mission 22, where they crash landed in France after being shot up on a mission over Berlin, and I tie it into the whole storyline. So Sugar Baby right now is at the publisher, and they're going to do a final edit. I should have it out by the end of summer.
Oh my gosh.
So that'll be book 5, and I'm doing one more book. It's to finish the series. It's called Red Beret.
Wow.
And there was a English spy, for the lack of a better term. She wore Red Beret, and
Yeah.
she would ride her bicycle past all the German positions in France and secretly record them and send the information to the British.
Wow.
But she would flirt with the Germans, so
Yeah.
they knew the girl with the Red Beret was coming. She'd
Yeah.
bring them lunch and stuff, and
Yeah.
completely faked them out.
Wow.
So that
How
book,
did you learn of this?
Military historian in
Really?
college.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is just, and I'm very interested in History Channel and
Yeah.
that type of thing. But the last book takes place before Codename Sunny.
Really?
So it's a prelude, and I'm not going to tell you how it ends because that would spoil it.
God, well, I gotta say, this code name Sunny, I'm gonna hold it up for Instagram. This is the gateway drug to Ken Body's book. So I love that they did keep this separate. I think that, is really in and of itself. It deserves to be on its own.
Right.
Where this all started, kind of thing. When you set out with each book, did you have a rough idea that you wanted to get to that certain amount of books? Or was it with each one you felt, okay, well, this needs this, and now...
I say I don't write the books, my characters do.
Yeah, the best authors always say that.
And the people say you need to have an outline, and you need to write 2,500 words a day if you're going to be a writer. So the difference between a writer and an author is a writer is that you write stuff.
Yep.
An author is published. You're
Yep.
published in whatever format.
Yeah.
So when you become published, you become an author. So going through all the characters, it's like I can't end the story there.
Yeah.
I need to continue it. So the last book is kind of a prelude to the series. So I don't think if people don't know about Codename Sunny, like I said, my dad went to France
Yes.
to speak French on the radio for Patton's fake invasion of Pas-de-Calais, which Churchill said was the surround yourself with the bodyguard of lies. And it was Operation Fortitude North, which was Norway, faking Germans out were going to Norway,
Okay.
which kept approximately 300,000 Germans in Norway through the entire war. And then there was Fortitude South, which was Pas-de-Calais, land in Pas-de-Calais. That whole fake was my dad talking French on the radio, but the agents going over to deliver radios to the partisans kept getting killed or captured. Later on, they found out there was a double agent working for the Germans, and a lot of these guys just got killed or sent to concentration camps, etc. So they asked for volunteers. My dad volunteered. He wasn't supposed to. My grandmother didn't agree with it. He was 17 years old.
Yeah.
So he goes over with a guy named Henri, and someday I want to go to, town's called Bourget, where they stayed on his farm, and they delivered radios at night. And 15 minutes after he landed there, they ran across a Jewish family that was killed by the SS, and partisans opened up, killed the SS, but the little girl, 8-year-old little girl, survived. So they brought her back to a hideout, and then they dropped her off at an inn, and the innkeeper and his wife kept the little girl, but the double agent knew where the girl was, but not the partisans, and the SS knew that the girl had the knowledge of SS being killed, and at that time, Ordre-sous-Glane was a town in France that was wiped out by the Germans because they thought the partisans were working with them. Mm-hmm. So they went into the inn, they killed the innkeeper and his wife because they wouldn't say anything. They tortured the girl all night and dumped her in a pea field. My dad picked her up that night because they found her on a moonlit night in a pea field, is what he told me. And the whole way back she said, j'ai dernier, which means I didn't tell.
Oh.
And she liked the song, Marlene Dietrich's All Along the Watchtower by the Bering Sea, There Waits My Love. She's waiting. She loved that song, so my dad sang it to her all night till she died in his arms.
Oh.
And so he kept that a secret for years, and that's Codename Sonny. That's the basis for the book. And then each one follows. So Mountains of Fire is everyone that escaped through the Pyrenees Mountains, Jewish families, partisans that had been compromised, or downed pilots.
Yeah.
And an interesting thing is, if you escaped into Spain as an Allied pilot or crew, and you told them, I'm evading the Germans, the Spanish would let you go to Gibraltar and you could get back. If you told them, I escaped from a POW camp, they would return you to the Germans. Because that was because they didn't want to be caught.
Oh, okay.
Spanish wanted to stay relatively neutral.
Okay.
And 13th Cohort, which the book you're in, is about the Spear of Destiny was pierced the side of Jesus when he was on the cross, and Himmler and the SS at Wewelsburg Castle had purportedly that spear, and they said that Hitler's rise to power, because it has the power of persuasion, because it had the blood of Christ on it, which was the theory or the legend, and that they said Hitler came to power because of that, which is ridiculous because he was evil. So, and they were the Germans were always after these relics that they could use.
It sounds a little bit like a Raiders of the Lost Ark story.
A bit.
Yeah,
it's a bit. In fact,
better.
Somebody had asked me, wanted to do a movie on the 13th Cohort, but I said, you got to do the first book first.
Yeah.
And it was, they said, it sounds like the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
It's kind of, that might have been in the back of my head, I don't know.
Well, I mean, but I think it all again goes back to the Holy Grail kind of thing, that
right.
kind of idea. I think that's the kernel, not a with your history, your knowledge of history, I'm sure it was that, more historic things that were the kernel of, the seed for that one, for sure.
Yeah, and so Black Dawn is about tabin, which is the first nerve agent that the Germans developed as a pesticide in 1936, but they had a problem with it. It kept killing people. So they wanted to weaponize it World War II, and I'm not sure if they couldn't weaponize it by the time World War II ended, or that the scientists knew that they were going to lose the war and they didn't want to be held for war crimes for having nerve agents out.
Yeah.
That was the thing at the end of World War I where they banned chemical weapons.
Yeah.
So, and then Sugar Baby will follow, and Red Beret, which I started writing already. So
unbelievable. I mean, I love how, you say the characters write the story. But, I mean, do you ever feel, you can't have much of a block if you are this able to get this much out. Do you ever have those moments where you just have to walk away from it for a little bit, or? Yeah,
and anybody that tells you I can write 5 books in a row and not have a problem with it, with delays and trying to figure something out. And a lot of times in the first 3 books, I was just being an author. I wasn't working full time.
Yep.
I would go into a local cafe or coffee shop or something and hang out, just watch people and listen to them. And because when you're writing a book, I can write a conversation right now, but if it doesn't sound real or sounds made up or something, people use slang, etc., that type of thing. So I will tell you, Sugar Baby took me from 2018 to today.
Wow.
This week to write, because I got a little ambitious with that one. I wrote it in 3 timelines, not 2. So
wow.
It goes from 1944, where her dad's plane crash landed in France. They were transported back to Paris and had literally the time of their lives. in Paris.
Yeah.
18 to 22-year-olds after France was liberated. You can imagine all the fun.
Yeah, yeah.
And they went into a bar dressed up in their aviator gear, pretended they were generals and colonels, trying to pick up girls. And they eventually went back to England and finished another 8 more missions before they were done. They were also the lead crew on D-Day, the bombers flying over as the D-Day landings were happening. So her dad has a lot of stories that he would tell me, but not Kim. And I think that's because I was in Desert Storm and I was a company coming in
Yeah,
here.
you come from a different...
Yeah. Funny stories, we're driving down to Myrtle Beach when Kim and I were engaged.
Yeah.
And her and her brother goes, "You drive with Dad." And they were kind of giggling behind the scenes because her dad was like a backseat driver. And I was doing 80 all the way down. And he looked over at me and says, "How fast are you going?" I said, 80, but I flew faster in a helicopter. And he went, "Okay." And we got down there and they go, "What did you do?" And I said, "None of your business."
Yeah.
It was 2 veterans talking.
Yeah, yeah. It's there is that brotherhood, and that never leaves you, I'm sure.
No, and you think about it all the time. In fact, some guys in my company who are now in their 40s and 50s, because they were even younger than me. I was a 32-year-old old man, captain, company commander, are they starting to contact me. So you get to that age where you want to reconnect. You want to forget about it for a while, and then you start thinking about all the camaraderie and all the guys you were with, and you want to start reconnecting with them. And I don't know if it's just it's a PTSD thing where you're trying to alleviate that, or it's just that you miss those guys. And these a lot of young kids that I was over, and I was the old man of the company.
Yeah,
So.
and you're certainly not that.
Yeah.
But it's a different world. I mean, when you are in, and again, thank you for your service. And Ken was with the Army, like 13 years?
13 years,
13
got
years
out
now?
as a major.
Yeah.
And so.
It's a different world. I mean, that you're living in. I mean, it's than the civilian world, and those are bonds that not only go on forever, but also the bonds that you have with people that didn't make it. I'm sure that's got a. I mean, as someone from the outside, I marvel at how some people, you're talking about like what your dad went through, or Kim's dad went through, and to have survived it, to talk about it later if they so choose. I'm sure there's got to be for the people that go through these heinous missions and then survive it when so many are lost. That's got to be,
There's an angel on both sides of the family. I don't know. My dad's side, I had my dad. His brother was a merchant marines, had 7 ships sunk under him by U-boats.
God.
Survived each time.
Wow.
And his oldest brother was in Pearl Harbor as a construction worker when the bombing occurred. And so those 3 survived. On Kim's side, 3 of her uncles all survived the war. One was a POW, he shot down in a B-17. And then on my mom's side, and Kim's mom's side, the 3 or 4 brothers on each all survived the war. So there's an angel on our family shoulder somewhere.
Well, I just would say thank you. Ken, let's stop for just a moment, though, because I want to give out the website again. I don't think I have it in correctly. Can you tell us the best website for people to find you?
Right, it's codenameseries.com.
Okay. And do you have where people can sign up for email blasts, so when new books come out, or when there's word about the script, tell us about that. Is there something they can sign up for?
I don't, but that's one thing I need to add to the site.
Okay.
But I do usually post the news up front on what's things that are going on and what's going to be released and when they're going to be released. And we had talked about it earlier, Codename Sunny. I worked with a New York Times best-selling ghostwriter.
Yes.
To write a movie script for the first book. Now, she didn't write the script.
Yep.
She formatted it for me because she's very familiar. Because writing a movie script is a lot different than writing a book.
Oh, I'm sure.
So there are 2 ways to write a movie script. It's either a movie script or a play script. So if you want to get into on stage for plays, you have to write a play script. And the difference between a movie and a play is the play script is audio, speaking audio.
Okay, more conversational.
Conversational. Thank you.
Okay.
Whereas a movie script is more visual. You can create those scenes on a movie script through green screen or on site. Whereas a play, you have to put that in people's heads of what the scene is or looks like.
Okay.
So
Okay.
so mine is written as a movie script, and Dr. Galino over in is a dentist in Groton here. I had talked to him, and he goes, "You get me a script, I'll get you the actors."
Oh wow.
And I guess he, at the time, I don't know if he still is, he was the producer at the Westerly Playhouse.
Okay. Okay.
So I have to rewrite it as a play script. I didn't
Yeah.
know it at the time when I had done this one. And
How do you see it in your mind's eye? Does that appeal to you, or is that just another facet of sharing your art? I mean, as opposed to on a movie screen versus on a stage, a live performance.
a live performance, I think it would be a little tougher with that first book.
Yeah.
It plays more to a movie.
Yes.
Actually, it really plays to a miniseries. So there's a
Yes.
couple of sites, inktip.com and virtualpitchfest.com are two sites that you can submit your scripts to if you want to do it. And I had 5 producers tell me, yes, let me see it, because you promote it to them. They kind of ghosted me since, but maybe they have it in the background. They're just waiting to. One of them said, "Please be very patient." 'Cause
Yeah.
we're working on several different projects at the moment, but
Yeah.
they're interested in it. So, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I really believe if it's meant for you, no one can take it away. And sometimes, it's just all about the timing. But you're right. I mean, I have to agree with you. The idea of the series now, that so many things have gone to, then we're kind of used to that now after COVID and watching our stories.
Right.
I think it also gives time to digest everything because there's so many nuances to your stories. And I'm not just talking the back and forth nature of, the timeline. That it gives one, time to kind of digest it all and then want the next one.
So I call it, I drag you through my book. So all the books are past, present chapters, so they alternate through. So what I do is I leave a little mini cliffhanger at the end of each chapter. Almost like Who Shot JR?
Yeah, yeah.
And then, okay, now I got to read the present chapter, and that's got a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And well, now I got to go back to the third chapter to find out what happened in the first chapter. And I've had a lot of people said they've read the first book in one night.
Yeah.
Like somebody was really mad at me because they stayed up to 4 in the morning to go work this morning. I'm like, sorry, it's my character's fault. Not
Yeah,
mine.
I can't give you a no, but I could try
Yeah.
if they'll take it. I also want to make sure I mention, as we're talking about you being an author, you were nominated Best Connecticut Author in 2024, Connecticut Magazine, Insider Magazine.
Yeah, and the results are coming out in July, which was really tough because it ended in March, and I got to wait till the July for the results. But
Yeah.
there's 4 or 5 really good authors on there, including Wally Lamb, who wrote the book Wishin' and Hopin', which was a movie based in Norwich on Catholic schools.
Yeah.
That was about 10, 15 years ago. But so I'm in good company there, so hopefully, knocking on wood.
Yes, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Now, on the website, codenameseries.com, people can go right there to buy it, can't they? Or do they have to go through an Amazon or...
No, but I have a part that says, one of the tabs on there is where you can buy the book.
Yep.
And there's a book finder for all the bookstores. So
Oh, terrific.
you can just put in your zip code. It'll give you all the bookstores like in Connecticut or whatever. And I also put some links to different areas. But I do recommend, if you want to buy the book, booklocker.com is my publisher. And the owner is really good. And I'm self-published, and there are a lot of self-publishing companies that you really have to be careful of.
Yeah.
Because they just want to take your money.
Yeah.
And I was with one, Infinity Publishing. Probably shouldn't have mentioned the name, but
That's okay.
they owe me about $1,500, $2,000 of royalties. And what they do is they change their name, go bankrupt, and. But Book Locker, she is very well in tune with that, and will tell you who is and who isn't. But
Yeah.
they're a great self-publishing company.
And do you do any book talks at any of the, especially with, we're going to talk about D-Day a little bit, but, with the different veterans holidays and stuff?
I have.
Got to meet your dad that way in Mystic when he was at the book signing in Mystic. I don't think you were there that day. Was it David that brought your dad? Was with your dad?
No,
that
it was
day?
me. It was. So we went into the Mystic bookstore, but they had booked somebody else over us, and so we went next door
Oh,
to
the Army place.
the Army Navy store, and sorry, I think the name's on the tip of my tongue. I think it was Steve, and he had been passing away of cancer. And his daughter Michelle's running the bookstores now.
Oh, okay.
But he said, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll put an ad in the London Day for you,
Yeah.
and you can come here and go into the one in the Mystic Village, which is now closed."
Yeah.
And we sold 120 books in 2 days, and I think they were doing the food fest at that time.
Yeah, there was a lot of traffic and
I didn't know at the time, but if you look at some of the pictures of my dad, he was sick at that time. He was having renal failure, started renal failure, and that was August, and he passed away in November.
really.
So it's really the last time, and we talked to a lot of people who it was a pretty cool event, and
It was a very cool event, and I actually we've got a couple copies. I got one from my father-in-law, who's a colonel, but my youngest son, got to meet your dad, and he was so chuffed about. And he's got a picture shaking his hand, and gosh, I wouldn't have known that he was ill at that point. Even, I mean.
Yeah, and I wish he was still around because I would bring him for talks. Could
you imagine?
Schools and stuff. Because I don't think the kids nowadays understand that 17, 18-year-old kids were fighting, overseas in wars.
No, I don't think they have any idea. What do you think your dad? I got to tiptoe around this. One of the things that really gets me is I find myself yelling at the television screen, saying something like, do they realize what the greatest generation was fighting for? Do they realize that we fought this war? I don't know. I mean, maybe the blessing is your dad doesn't have to see some of this stuff, because it seems that not only have people forgotten or maybe never learned, they just don't care. It's just shocking to me.
I think if we ever end up in... See, people go, well, why are we going to another war? Every generation in this country has been in a war.
Yes.
Since the start of this country.
Mm-hmm.
There's been one war or another. Lately the last ones were Afghanistan, Iraq, and we're still kind of fighting overseas, but it's not, we're not fully engaged.
Yes.
In those wars. So everything that's happening with Russia and Ukraine and NATO, and people really need to be concerned with that, because we're on the brink of something that somebody makes the wrong move and World War III is going to happen. So,
yeah.
And people go, that's not true, but it is.
Yeah.
You always have some dictator, and I didn't really want to go down this road, but Putin is very much like Stalin. And a lot of stuff that Stalin did and Putin are hand in hand with, manifest destiny kind of stuff.
Yes.
That we, how we took over this country. But
yeah.
He's bringing that all back. So we have to be very, very careful about what we do.
Yeah.
In the future.
Yeah.
And I think, Biden's doing a good job of not escalating
that. It's amazing to me that only 1% of the population is willing to serve. I mean, that is just so minuscule, considering, that's our first line, that's everybody. Was it your father that he didn't share his stories until much later in your life. Did you feel the calling to serve, or was that more of a familial thing, how you were brought up? Was there anything that you can share that brought you to the Army?
I keep thinking of this. I was a little kid. I was 8 or 9 or 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I always my dad was in the Navy. That's how we knew him. He was in the Navy, because after he left France, he volunteered in the Navy. And I said, well, what? He goes, he became a medic. And he goes, do you know why I became a medic in the Navy? He goes, because the little girl died in my arms and I couldn't save her.
Yeah.
So then he went into the Pacific in the last island hopping, and he's in the Pacific as a medic. So he was in both theaters, and I think my brother went to a concert with him. Might have been the Doobie Brothers. I'm not sure. He can clarify. And they said all the Navy veterans stand up. My dad stood up, and they sat down. He goes, all the Army veterans stand up. My dad stood up. My brothers look at him like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
So that was the start of all that.
Wow.
I was a little kid, and I go, Dad, I want to be in the Navy just like you were. And he goes, nah, I think you're more of the Army kind. So I don't know if that was an insult.
Yeah. A compliment, maybe.
Maybe, I don't know. So I went to Norwich University in Vermont, was a military school. I was always interested in going in the Army. And I went in the Army from there, and was an armor officer originally, but with an aviation specialty. And then they made aviation a branch in 1984.
Yeah.
So I switched permanently to aviation, were in Germany, and they had the Iraq thing going on, where they went into Kuwait, and we're the 3rd Armored Division, and it's a desert war, so everybody's like, all right, get ready, we're going to be going.
Wow.
And we did, and I didn't lose a single person in my company, and we got into a lot of stuff, so I'm very happy about that. So,
yeah, and were you awarded as the Bronze Star? They were awarded?
Yes, Bronze Star for combat air medals. It's every 24 hours you get a combat air medal.
Wow.
Kuwait Liberation Medal, which is a funny story behind that. There's an ounce of gold in that medal. So the story goes that the Kuwait government wanted to give all the veteran people that served to liberate their country $1,000.
Yeah.
And the U.S. government says, we're not mercenaries. So they put an ounce of gold in the medal, and they give us the Kuwait Liberation Medal. And
wow.
there's the Southwest Asia Service Medal, which was Operation, I got 3 bronze clusters, which is Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and POW repatriation.
Wow.
I can say that fast 3 times too.
Wow.
We didn't want to do that. Nobody. It was over. We wanted to go home.
Yeah, yeah.
And now you're going to stay. There's a new general. He said he's going to help repatriate all the POWs, Iraqi POWs. Like, oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
So we eventually did go home, and they rewarded everybody with a week in Berchtesgaden in Bavaria, and we got to see the crow's nest where Hitler was, and it was pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that must have been, earlier in our conversation you mentioned about wanting to go back and seeing the farmhouse in Codename Sunny, right?
Yeah.
What do you know that's there? Do you know that these...
I don't know. 'Cause
Yeah.
That's what you're talking 80 years.
Yeah. But are you amazed? We also mentioned this about how, even now, I mean, there are still Nazi hunters out there, and they're finding people. And, what was the story I just saw the other day about maybe photographs were found that were Nazi photographs, but how this was, I mean, there were photos of the camps and stuff that were just shocking. Does it ever surprise you that more things are coming out as we are here in 2024?
No, that's kind of hinted in through the books. That stuff's still there. In fact, there's a agency in Germany right now that's kind of like our FBI that concentrates on rooting out fascist organizations that want to have, in quotes, the Fourth Reich.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and some politician mentioned that the other day, and it was just like, I can't believe you just said that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the Reichs used to be just like change of government.
Yeah.
But the Third Reich is associated with Nazi Germany, so now that's a term that's not appropriate.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't say it's not politically correct. It's just not appropriate.
Not appropriate. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of related to evil. So saying that kind of thing is evil.
Yeah. Well, we won't say that.
No.
What we will say is about this 80th anniversary of D-Day. Just saying that must be mind-blowing. 80 years ago.
Yeah, and some of those guys are still around.
Yeah.
There are very, very few left.
Yeah.
But they're high 90s, over 100 years old.
Yeah.
A few of them. There was one I saw on, it was a Facebook video, had a guy who's 102, had served in Germany. So it's just amazing lives. And most of them won't talk. And then if you go down to Washington, D.C., there were recorded videos of these guys at the World War II Memorial. So I have a Sugar Baby. If you look at one of the tabs on my website, it's Sugar Baby. It's down at the bottom. There's an interview with the crew on that mission, and it was done by the crew, and they all got on and talked. I still need to send that to DC to make sure that they get that video.
Yes, I see that. And the website I want to give out again is codenameseries.com. Codenameseries.com. It's also interesting how you wind women into your stories as well. I bring that up. I had just read Kristen Hanna's The Women, and it's Vietnam, and she, it's with the nurses, and it was mind blowing to me, just mind blowing. to get that kind of an account. She does a lot of historic. She even used real places and things like that. So it was historic, although it's a work of fiction. But the things that were historic were mind blowing. I never even occurred to me some of these things, let alone what the women's. I mean, you know how bad it was for the men who, with the PTSD
right.
and not being acknowledged. Not only not being acknowledged, but being spat on but the women weren't even acknowledged that they were even there. Even the VA wouldn't help them. Didn't believe they were there.
But in France
Yes.
and Britain sent over a lot of female agents because,
Get people to talk.
get people wily ways. I guess
Yeah.
one way to put it. But
Yeah.
that's what the Red Beret's about, and I'm going to incorporate a lot of the female agents within that book because. There's, in fact, in the third book, there's a character named Lelaine. It's actually based on a true character who had a German sniper rifle. And one of the partisans, might have been my dad, asked, "Why do you have a German sniper rifle?" She said, "Because I want to give the Germans back their bullets one at a time."
Oh.
So, because her whole family had been wiped out, and they're Jewish, had been sent to concentration camps, she escaped and then went to work with the partisan group. So, part of the partisan groups in France at that time, there were the Maquis, which were the communists, and then there was the Free French, which were more the democratic side. So but they at times they collaborated, but most of the time they did things separately. So I told you about Margaret Ann Clementi, who was the editor.
Yeah.
She grew up in southern France, and she said half her family were Free French partisans. The other half were Vichy French, which were the collaborators with the Germans. She said holidays were very interesting. It usually ended up in a fist fight.
Yeah.
And so in all my books, the French that's spoken that she edited for the past and present, she edited the past French for how they spoke at that time frame. And so having lost her to brain cancer was just devastating. And she actually wrote to 6 people, and I was one of them. And I have this letter that I'm probably going to put up on the website where she says that she talks about how it's her condition at the time and that she's waiting for the next adventure to happen.
The greatest adventure of all.
The next adventure. And she talks about how we affected her lives. And so it was a pretty emotional letter.
I bet. And talk about meant to be. With her background, it's really unbelievable that she would end up being the one that would edit your books and that. How did you connect with her to begin with?
So we had moved to Half Moon Bay, California, because Kim got a job with Evotech, which is a company, a biotech company.
Yeah.
And so there was a local bookstore, and I had just written the first book, and going on the second one, I met her at a book signing. And I was very interested, and I already had published the first one. I was working on the second one. She goes, "I'll edit for you." And she, I pay her as an editor. You pay editors. But it's always good to have a second set of eyes on any book, anything you write.
Yeah.
But I use a program now. It's called ProWritingAid.com, and it's a phenomenal program. It'll tell you, you use the word "the" in the 4 sentences in a row. You need to change that, or
Wow.
You're using too many passive verbs in this, and it just makes you a better writer.
Yeah.
And so she had turned me on to that, and I use it now, but I'm still sending it to the editor to do a final, or the publisher to do a final edit.
Yeah.
Just because I want another set of eyes on it.
Yeah.
And then we'll publish it probably August, September timeframe.
Wow. Do you do anything special to commemorate D-Day?
I have a toast to my dad.
Yeah.
He liked bourbon.
Yeah.
And the only way I could get him to tell his story is we sat down with some bourbon and we traded stories, and I eventually got on. But like I said, he told us the story on New Year's Eve when we got back, and I've never seen my dad cry into that moment.
What a breakthrough moment. And what a blessing that he decided to share, because had he not, he could have just kept it forever, where I'm sure a lot of guys do.
I think it just builds up in you. You got to talk to somebody, and he talked. But we were all standing there, and everybody was in shock. And I remember my mom saying, "You got to listen to this."
Yeah.
And he didn't even tell her, and they were married for 50 years. Wow. So I think he was afraid that that stuff still goes on, and because he was part of eliminating people.
Yeah.
That whole operation. I know that they got him out of there because now the SS and the Gestapo were after him.
Yeah.
And they had heard of him. So I don't know if the girl told the innkeeper or whatever, or the double agent knew who he was.
Yeah.
So they flew him out with and I'm trying to think of the lady's name, but she had a wooden leg, and she escaped through the Pyrenees Mountains with a wooden leg, which is a level 5 climb.
Oh my gosh!
And I had talked to a guy who wrote the book La Chemin de Liberté, which is the Freedom Trail, and how the passeurs or the guides would guide people through. And he goes, unbelievable. But she got in a World War I plane with him, and they flew back together. And she lived in Maryland until she died. But she was, I think they called her the White Rabbit.
Really?
And she was a unbelievable spy. My dad had traded stories with her, which I heard a few of them. So
yeah, it's just a marvel to me when I think about how people can live an entire life under the surface, you know. And some never get accolades for it. They just are never known, you know. But maybe that's the way they like it best.
You know, there's a lot of activities with veterans going on, and people do. So there's a friend of ours, Nick Alvarez, who's two brothers in Salem, does a lot of stuff with veterans, and they have veterans events where people go to. So I encourage people to attend those kind of events because they are special events and they honor veterans. And it's mainly a lot of stuff he does with motorcycle clubs, and they do the fun runs and stuff like that for veterans. Yeah,
they deserve every honor we can muster. I think it's so important that we remember that this stuff, you know, does not go by the wayside. It's the only way things get remembered is if we keep telling the stories, you know. So I do hope that it will continue. I also want to remind you again, codenameseries.com is where you can go. You also have a good Facebook. Are you on Instagram too? Is there any other social media we want to share that you would, or is that more personal?
No, I'm on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I know it's linked to Facebook.
Okay, so you can find you there.
Yeah,
it's author Ken Potty or Codename?
Codename Series. It's on the Facebook page.
Okay.
And I usually post the videos, and I've done a lot of, I used to do a video production company when I was in California, so I did a lot of videos with the books, and a guy by the name of Kevin Danzig, who's a musician, wrote 2 songs for each one of the first 2 books. So if I ever get a producer in a movie...
When you get a producer in the movie.
True. Kevin's songs have to be in there.
Absolutely. And that wasn't his, I mean, he's a songwriter, but it wasn't his history to do that, though, was it? It was new for him.
Yeah, and because I kind of a scratch your back thing.
Yeah.
I did music videos for him, and he wrote and produced these songs and put them out there. And then I did a video on the songs, and we're both in both the videos, and we're kind of having fun.
I love it. Ken, it's always such a treat to see you. I want to hold these up for Instagram one more time. I've been holding up Codename Sunny. There we go. And Mountains of Fire. They are just so great and such a great, worthwhile read this summer if you're looking. And we want to remind you that Sugar Baby is on its way. There we go. And I can't tell you how much when I open a book and I see my name there, it freaks me out. And there's Black Dawn, and I have my hat still. I didn't wear it today, but I still have my cap.
I do have to do one shout out to all the book covers were designed and created by Gary DeSalyers, who's on Facebook, who lives in Rhode Island. And when we got together and he started drawing the covers, I'd say these are phenomenal.
Yeah.
So he also does things for people for weddings and stuff like that. But Gary DeSalyers on Facebook, so check him out.
And this was a redo, wasn't it?
Yeah, the first one, that's really version 2. I added some context on why the SS were after the Jewish family and the characters in that, because it, to me, was important.
Yeah.
And my first editor wasn't so great, and so I had it professionally re-edited and went through that pro writing aid to comment and got it all squared away. So if you see the old cover with my dad's face on it, that's the older version. This is the newer, improved version.
And it's so true. I mean, as I said, I mean, just reading through a book where you go back and forth, you need to go back, but to be writing that and not have another set of eyes on it has got to be just mind-boggling after a while.
Well, my wife Kim said she was, I told her, hey, look at the book, edit for me before I got the editor. And I go, did you finish the book? She goes, yeah. Did you edit it? I forgot. Because she got drugged through the book. and it was just really funny. And
yeah.
So, it happens.
Yes, it does, and that's a big compliment. I want to thank everyone that's been watching on here. We've had some lookers there. We want to make sure you know one more time, codenameseries.com is where you can go to find out about everything we've been talking about and follow along. And when Ken does get that email option, sign on up for it so you can get that right to your email inbox. All right, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shut down Facebook here. And I do have that. Well, we'll do a photo with the thing over there in a minute. But thank y'all so much. I really appreciate it. Here we go.
See ya.
Bye. We're going to go like this and then...